Stephen, let's talk about taxes for a moment, because there was some debate. We had Steve Moore on the program recently who made a comment that maybe corporate tax is going to 15% is a priority, but maybe individual taxes coming down significantly is not as much of a priority, or maybe should not be. Where do you sit on this?
Absolutely not. They're both a priority. They're both going to be part of the tax bill that we pass. And we absolutely think that not only are corporate taxes important, but simplifying personal taxes, cutting the number of brackets down, creating a middle-income tax cut, incorporating the child care credits. This is all a huge priority. And on the upper class, we're going to simplify it. We're not going to have a tax cut for the upper class, but we are going to simplify it, and any reduction in the rate will be offset with less deductions and simplifying taxes, so we create a lower marginal rate for people to invest. But both the personal income tax and the corporate tax are part of the Trump plan, and that's going to be what we're looking to pass in the first 90 days.
Are you ready for a change in culture? I mean, you're both business guys and have been your entire careers. You're about to become, I don't know, dare I say, government bureaucrats?
Well, I think we'll have to change some, but I think that the president-elect is going to bring a slightly different culture to Washington, and I think the government bureaucrats will have to get used to us, and we'll have to get used to them.
Maybe there won't be government bureaucrats.
No, there are
with
more
the new sheriff in town.
There are more of them, but we think it's a fair fight.
Yeah, exactly. So, you know, we had Steve Forbes on the other day, and he was talking about 6% economic growth. Is that in the realm?
Well, look, I'd love to have 6% economic growth, and I hope he's right. We're shooting to 3 to 4%, which we think is a sustainable long-term growth for this country, and that's where we think we're going to get. And if we can have 3 to 4% growth, that's fantastic for the United States.
How significant are you expecting to move the needle as it relates to money coming back from overseas? How much money is sitting overseas right now? We're talking, what, $2 trillion or something? Or
yeah, it's a staggering number.
It's a staggering number.
I mean, first of all, the reason why American companies don't bring the cash back is because the differential in tax rates. So the combination of lowering the corporate tax and a one-time 10% repatriation tax, absolutely going to get cash back here. I mean, if you look at Apple, Apple's kind of the classic company. They're sitting on hundreds of billions of dollars of cash, and they go out and borrow money against their overseas bank accounts. This makes no sense, and they've said the reason why they're doing that is because of like high corporate tax rates. So we think there's going to be hundreds of billions, if not trillions of dollars that's going to come back, and that's going to create infrastructure and create jobs.
Well, it makes no sense on one level, but it makes a lot of sense on another level because you've got 0% interest rates.
Right, but you already have Apple talking about now bringing factories back.
I love it.
Did you hear that last year or the year before?
No. Yeah,
now you're hearing it.
Exactly. On the topic of interest rates, what do you want to see happen at the Federal Reserve?
Well, first thing is we do have two positions that we have to fill at the Federal Reserve, two governors. One of the very important jobs is a vice chair of bank supervision. That has been open for a while, and that will be a big priority of the administrations to recommend someone to Congress to pass. And I think that, you know, interest rates are going to stay pretty low for some period of time. Eventually, they're going to go up. We're going to need to look at how we extend the government debt so that when it goes up, we're not exposed to a huge increase in the deficit. But these are all the types of things we're going to look at. But the Fed jobs are two of the important ones we're looking at now.
When do you expect those decisions to be made? Next year?
We got a lot of jobs that we're looking at right now, and we're interviewing a lot of people, and we hope to make these decisions as quick as we can.
Are you hoping to fill these jobs with business people or a mix? How do you see filling out these staff?
Well, the key is going to be qualified people. And some may have prior government experience, some may not. But government experience is not the be-all and end-all, as Steve and I are going to try to prove.
Right, sure. I mean, you want a business person in there, right? I mean, more than not, who's actually handled the P&L, who's handled jobs and creating jobs.
And businesses have had a big history having to deal with government as well. So it isn't that if you've been in business, you don't have any interaction with government. You have altogether too much interaction, a lot of it involuntarily.
We've spoken a lot on this program about Obamacare and about the cost of the Affordable Care Act. Is this something that you're going to be tackling?
It's something I'll be working with the other parts of the administration on, and they'll be taking the lead on. But Obamacare is right up there as one of the top priorities of this administration to repeal and replace.
Because the rollback of regulations you think is going to be meaningful in terms of economic growth. Changes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And the EPA, what are the other onerous regulations that you're looking to change?
I mean, I can tell you I've already started interviewing people for the EPA. I've sat in. This is one of the top priorities of this administration. We have a team of about 8 people that are interviewing. We're looking at that. We're looking at the SEC. There's a lot of things across of important government agencies where we need to put smart people in, and these people will have relevant experience to go in and know how to manage these agencies.
And obviously you've experienced the EPA rules better than most people out there. Can you characterize the impact?
Well, I believe that the total burden of regulation on this country is around $2 trillion a year. So if we could just knock out 10% of that, which should not be very hard, that's $200 billion a year pre-tax for corporations. That, at the 15% rate, that's $170 billion after tax. That's huge.
It's absolutely huge, yeah. So the EPA has been, and President Obama put a lot of those rules in the last 2 years.
Oh, yeah. There were something like 3,000 a year in each of the last 2 years. Now, do you really think the U.S. was such a wild and woolly place 2 years ago that we needed 6,000 or 7,000 more regulations? I don't think
it's
so.
Pretty incredible, actually.
That's a lot.
Take us behind the curtain, gentlemen, and tell us how these picks have gone on and the meetings that you've been having in terms of putting the administration together.
Well, I mean, let me first comment. I mean, I think this is just incredible. I mean, the president-elect himself, I think, has interviewed close to 70 people for critical jobs. And that's just him and a small group of people. And we have other teams below him that are interviewing. We've had a huge number of people that have come out and want to be part of this administration. I think the most incredible thing is we have a lot of people who didn't want to be part of the administration while he was running that now all of a sudden have changed their tune and want to support the president-elect. So we couldn't be more excited with the talent that we see both from the public and private sector that want to help serve this administration.
Yeah, I think there are more qualified people who want to help this administration than will be able to have jobs for.
So, I mean, I have to say to myself, well, where were they during the campaign? I mean, no large corporate CEO endorsed Donald Trump. Not one.
Well, you'd really have to ask them why, not us. We did.
I mean, it's almost, I mean, they should also be saying to themselves, what am I thinking that I just impacted shareholders? I mean, look how the market has reacted.
Right.
Where were they when all of the fighting was going on? I mean, really?
Well, Maria, you're right. The one thing I would comment is, although we didn't have large CEOs, we had a lot of small and medium-sized. We had over 100 small and medium-sized CEOs that signed on to our economic plan in the letter. And look, you know, I think we see this was an election about the American worker that supported this administration. And this was driven by small and medium businesses and business owners.
So what about the technology sector where they're saying, look, we want cheap labor?
Well, the technology sector is not that labor intensive anymore. Think about it. It's intellectual resource intensive more than it is labor intensive.
Okay. Okay. What about Mitt Romney? A lot of debate about Mitt Romney.
Look, I mean, first of all, I just comment, it was unfortunate that during the election that Mitt didn't come out and support the president-elect, but I think it's terrific that he's now come out and been incredibly supportive, and they've had a lot of conversations. And I think it's incredible of this president-elect that he's open to reach out to the most talented people, wherever they are, and listen to them. And I think that's what we see.
Thoughts on Secretary of State position?
That's for the president to decide.